Hey everyone, welcome to How You Go There. I'm Scott Montgomery, and I'm thrilled to kick off this series where we walk through the How You Go There workbook together.
And I'm your co-host, Linda Misegatis. We're diving into the real stories and steps behind personal and professional growth.
Before you can chart out a new path, you have to understand the path that brought you here. And this series is all about slowing down, reflecting, and getting curious about your experiences. That's how you go there. Welcome back to How You Go There. I am Scott Montgomery, and today we're focusing on something that touches every part of everyone's journey, and that is effective communication, or just communication. How are you doing, Linda? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. This is one of my all-time favorite topics because one, communication has been at the heart of every good and bad thing I've done throughout my career, where I've used it, to your point, effectively, and when I have been ineffective in my
Or just
communication.
used it. Right.
Or just used it, that's right. And so I love that we're talking about this because especially right now, there is so much going on in the world of work today. And I think more than ever, we really need to help provide some coaching to all of our listeners out there about one, understanding. So you're going to talk about know thyself and kind of understanding the whole communication style,
It's a good place
and
to start.
why that's so important, right? Because if you don't know how you communicate or how others communicate, then that's where you can end up with that, miscommunication in all of that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the outlook is to improve communication and recognize that it's a really, really important aspect of leadership and forward motion, growth mindset, all things that we value in business.
Yes.
I coach a group of folks in New York City who I have been working individually with now for probably a year, maybe even a little over a year. And one of the major themes that I've been able to corral is the lack of communication between departments. So while you can
Yes.
work on yourself and you can be coached and you can be a coachee and work on communication, there's also this interdepartmental communication thing. And
Yeah.
we offer that at How You Go There as part of our framework, and part of our offering is communication workshops. So that
Yes.
if you're being coached and you're working on yourself, then how does that work in the dynamic of the
Yeah.
organization? And so I think it's really important you look at it two ways. Yeah.
No, and I'm glad you bring that up because that is oftentimes where you see the breakdown in organizations, especially when we talk about like we're one team. Well, back in the day when we were all brick and mortar organizations and we literally were in the same building together, I think that one team concept was easier to actually implement, right? Because you literally were all together. I mean, you might have had some field people, but for the most part, your operational
In the
type of
office. Yeah.
components were in the office, right? Now we're in hybrid workforces. Maybe we're in the office. Some people are in, some people are out. And how do you now have a one team feel? Well, it is through communication because that is the key to cross-functional, cross-departmental success is you have to have strong communication, and it's got to go beyond like your Slack and your Teams and your emails. Sometimes it's getting on the phone and talking to someone. There's this whole other world of it. But to your point, with all of that, none of that matters if you don't even understand how you communicate, how others receive that communication, and kind of setting the stage for that, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. It's inner self, it's inner team, and then it's inner department. So how
Yeah.
you're working across functional teams is great. That's a place to consider. Also, how you're working within your own team to hit that one mission, you're working together, but then also how you express yourself. And to your point, there are many ways that we're communicating every day that we don't
Yeah.
always even recognize. Body language, eye
It's
contact,
true.
uh,
Yeah.
facial expressions,
Hmm.
tone and tenor of your voice.
Right.
All
Right.
those things need to be assessed in the message that you're trying to parlay in forward motion progress in leadership. And so one of the places I like to start, and it's usually in a coaching session, is to assess one's self through the various different tools that will help you with your default or preferred style of
That
communication.
makes sense. Well, and I wish there was a workbook. Oh, wait, there is
Oh,
out
wait.
there. Yeah, it
Oh,
does.
this workbook? What a great place to start.
What a great place to start.
What's my communication style? Oh,
Oh, well, here we go. There
that's a
actually
great
is a
plug.
workbook.
Thank you. No, but it is, I appreciate you bringing it up because it is a good place for folks to start because you do have to
Yeah.
look within. You can have a
Yes.
great mission and interest and desire, but if you're not communicating effectively, you can turn off other players, you can turn off other teammates, and you can close
Yeah.
doors real fast.
You really can. No, I agree. Well, and one thing that you said to me, I don't know, a couple of years ago, that really stuck with me is just the idea is that you should not come into any communication assuming that there's bad intention behind it, right?
Right.
And that's not always easy to do, but we have a tendency sometimes to read perceived tone in an
Mhm.
email or a
Mhm.
message, or we think that the way somebody is coming at us, maybe they're attacking us. And so we immediately go defensive and we assume that there is bad intention behind it.
Mhm.
But most of the time, there isn't probably that bad intention there. And sometimes what could be impacting and how you're perceiving that or receiving that could very well be like, maybe I'm having a bad day. And so the
Could be
way that I'm
passion.
coming across could be passion. Yeah. So a lot of times passion is misinterpreted into like being aggressive or overly assertive or something like that as well.
Being loud can be
Being
aggressive and it can
loud.
be
Yeah.
passionate. Can be both. So
Absolutely.
your
Yeah.
default interpretations and know thyself and how you receive that is
Yeah.
really important, but also these styles overlap and they can get confusing. If I'm loud, it could mean I'm passionate, could also mean I'm angry, could
That is
also
true.
mean I'm deflecting, and all those
Yes.
communication styles are really, really tricky. So I do like to start with know thyself. And I
Yeah,
think,
so let's dig into that a little bit. I mean, can you talk about, like, this worksheet and, a little
well,
bit on, like, how do we come up or do you not wanna go there first? I'm okay,
no,
I
I
mean
absolutely do want to go there first. And I
yeah?
think I want to caveat the idea that while we joke about the shameless plug of how you go there,
Yes, it
this
actually
really,
is a useful tool.
it is a very useful tool and it is
Yes.
also a tertiary tool. I have, like I said, several coaching clients at this one outfit that are using this framework and we
Yeah,
are hitting the communication chapter because if they can start to understand what's my style, how do I deliver, what is my preferred style, they
yeah,
can work on elevating that for their
mhm,
mission. And they can
yeah.
work on toning that down or up on their mission. And
And the funny thing is like all of that links to all the things we've been talking about, right? Relationships,
Mhm,
partnerships, habits, goals, mentors, and coaches. All of
mhm.
that was precursory to getting to communication. But without a good communication style, none of that other stuff, like you're not going to be as effective in those other pieces, right?
As effective because not only am I a direct communicator and I would check all those boxes, if
Hmm.
I'm direct with an indirect communication style, it can come
Yeah.
across as angry or aggressive. So
Yes. Yeah.
knowing thyself and then in turn figuring out and interpreting how you're being received is
Right.
quite a practice.
It
It
is.
often starts, however, with neutrality, whether you're direct or indirect. And if you can learn how to monotone yourself and you can
Hmm.
learn how to motivate in both of those styles in a message you're sending, that's
Hmm.
where a coach can come in and help you. And so several of my folks have said, I want to send this email and I'm going to blast everybody. And then we
Yeah.
sit down and we coach about that. And we talk about what end result you're looking for. And that email suddenly gets really dialed down and
Yes.
still expresses the nature of urgency.
Yes,
So
yes.
working with someone, if we were in our coaching,
Mhm.
episode is really helpful, but then also taking an example and an inventory of what your style is. The workbook framework that we've put together, I've put together
Yeah.
is literally going to start to introduce this to you. And that's why I like
Yep.
this workbook. There are a few exercises that will ask you, what's my communication style? Here's a scenario. How would you answer it? That reinforces
Right. Yep.
your own belief on your own communication style. And then we
Yeah.
turn the page and we look at neutrality. Yes, and how do you do
Yeah.
that? So
Yep.
this workbook is being expanded into a more deliberate, more intentional, deeper workbook that I'm working on this
Right.
summer that will
Right.
actually take this from cursory and aware, but rather exercise how do you do that? And
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
I am enlightened and intrigued to watch my coachees take and embrace this and find excitement and prosperity in leadership when they start to take these inventories and then practice them.
That's the whole purpose of that's been the conversation, right? Is like, well, you have to kind of know where you're starting. And so thinking about, to your point, that if I know that my boss is very direct, well, then probably what they want is clarity, quick decisions, and bottom line. They don't need
Beautiful.
you to give them all of the white noise in the middle of it, right? Because they don't care and they're not going to listen to you. That's the thing.
They're not going to hear it no
They're
matter how
not
many
going
you
to
say it.
hear your exactly. They're not. You're going to miss the point because you're not communicating properly. And then you might have someone else who's maybe more analytical. So they want the details, the data, and then they need time to process it, right? So if you're expecting an immediate response, you're not going to get it. And that can be really frustrating if you're someone who's more direct and you're like, come on, I need the answer right now. And so it's kind of understanding and finding the balance in all of that. And then some people are really about relationships, right? And that connection. And so they want to build trust first. So they might small talk with you. They might get to
Yeah,
know you a little bit more. They might dig
sure.
into how's your day going? And you're like, I don't want to talk about how my day is going. I just
Right.
want you to do this. And so it's like really understanding all of those components of it are so important because none of them are right or wrong. And so I think that's when it gets challenging, right? Is like how do we identify those differences
Well, and
to
that's
make
the
us more
work, I think,
effective?
for folks in communication. You can't predict how you're going to be received, but you can talk in a way that there's no mistaking your intent as a leader.
Yes.
And
Yes,
so
absolutely.
there's a balance in this that is really to be determined by the executor. And so understanding has a really deep meaning, but awareness makes it a little easier. So I don't need to understand everyone's different styles. I need to be aware that there are different styles and then turn my style into more of a neutral one, which is where a coach can come in handy. Awareness comes in handy, and know thyself.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah,
I need to
no.
tone
And
it down or whatever
well, and
kind of
that's what I
example.
really like about the workbook, honestly, is
Yeah.
that the way that you've laid this out is that, you've got each of the different kind of communicators. So we were talking about direct, indirect, supportive, and analytical is what
Mhm.
you've labeled them in the book. And then
Yeah,
in
yeah.
there are the different questions where you actually are going to score yourself, right? So then you can determine because you might actually think that you are a direct communicator and then you go through all of this and you find out, oh, actually, I'm an analytical communicator. And that might totally change your style and your approach. And you might go, oh, maybe that's why I'm being misunderstood because I thought that I was communicating under this style, but this is actually how I'm communicating. And that may be the difference in why I'm being received the way that I am. So,
No, that's brilliant. And, I'm just going up into the clouds for just a second because last week we talked about coaching and we were in
yeah.
how a coach can do assessments for you to understand your style. This
Uh
workbook
huh.
can help you understand your style. But prior to that, this framework really does compound itself. You're in partnership, you're in relationship, you set yourself up for peak performance with your habits, you set your goals, you hire a coach or someone to help you, and then you learn how to
Yeah.
communicate it. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
really exciting for me to get into this part of it because if we're still holding an audience on this,
Yeah.
this is where the rubber starts to meet the road for our
Yeah.
listeners and our
Yes.
the folks that we're trying to support
Absolutely.
because it moves the needle from them to how do I? And we're moving
Yes.
how do
Yeah.
I move that goal to a result? How do I perform my habits and communicate those effectively with my partners in relationships? I like to make my bed
Yeah.
the minute I get up. My partner doesn't. So we meet in the middle and communicate that, whatever the example may
Right.
be.
Yeah, no, it's true. Well, and I'll give an example of where I learned a lesson about communication early in my career. I think I've talked about this before in that I'm a pretty direct communicator for the most part.
Yeah.
I think that
No,
I'm
you matched my
yeah.
directness for sure.
Yeah,
And I think you're
exactly.
nicer than I am.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a nice direct communicator, that's
Yes.
right. But I have throughout my career, oftentimes, I had one of my former, bosses had said to me one time, "Linda, just because you say it so doesn't make it."
Mm,
And it was because I communicate that directly. And so one of the lessons that I learned is I sent a very direct email to senior leadership back early in my career, and I still stand by the message that I sent,
Yeah.
supporting my
Intent.
team. Like I don't,
Yeah.
my intention was a really solid intention, and I was standing up for my team, and but the style in which I went about doing that, and I probably went a little too far in maybe the level that I elevated. Back then, a little more chain of command, and I definitely jumped a couple chains of command to be very direct in my communication, but I wanted to make sure I was getting my point across, and I did get my point across, and in return, I also, did not get the promotion, when I was going to, and I got some training that came out of it to say, "Hey, maybe you could go use some training on this." And that was good. I mean, I got something out of it in the long run, and I wouldn't have, again, changed the intention, but had I known
You got
then what
what
I
you
know
gave.
now, I got what I
Yeah.
I got some direct feedback,
Right.
about how that was received. But what I think is important in all of that is that I learned from it.
Mhm.
And I have modified my style of communication, depending upon, again, who my audience is, because that's the other thing that I've learned in leadership is that I can't expect the people who work with me or for me to change to adapt to my style and expect everybody to just be the way that I want them to. So what I do is take the time to learn what each of my team's styles are. And that's another great way that you can use this exercise, right? Have your team go through this as well. We do the personality and all of those sorts of things. This is a
Yeah.
great way because if I know your communication style, then if I'm giving you feedback, I know that maybe for you, I need to be more supportive and I need to talk through things a little bit differently. I might have somebody else where I have to be very direct with them. And I
Mhm.
might have somebody else who's very analytical. And if I don't come with very specific examples, they're going to miss my whole point in all of that. But
Mhm.
that's incumbent on me, I think, as the leader to learn and adapt my style of communication to my team. And then in return, I hope that they show me the same favor and they know when they're bringing things to me, I would like them to adapt to my style of communication,
I'm gonna
right?
push back on your intention of saying incumbent on me as their leader, and I'm gonna
Ah,
say
okay.
it's incumbent on all of us as leaders.
Ah, that's a good way to frame it. Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think
for
if they're
sure.
not aware of their communication styles, maybe as their leader, you give them the tools to learn more about it
That's a
so that
really
that
good way. Yeah.
collaboration
You must be
bec
a coach or something like
I
I mean,
I
do you have
I
some
I
background in coaching?
I have a certification with the International
Oh, you
Coaching
do?
Federation,
Oh, I
I'm
didn't
just
know
saying.
that. Oh, I had no idea.
But I did that only for our listeners to recognize that it
Yeah.
is incumbent on us if we're trying to be more effective leaders, no matter where we rank in the hierarchy of an org chart. And I
Yeah,
think that's
that's a
really
good
important
point.
for all of us. And yes, I think as people higher up on the org chart, we should expose people to know thyself in these assessments and personality assessments and style assessments. And it's a
Absolutely.
great way to
Yeah.
start with a coach. So, again, that
Yeah.
framework that we're talking about and going back to last week's episode, bringing in something that sort of recognizes for you what your style of communication is. Because don't forget, it's also body language, it's
So
also
true.
interrupting or not interrupting. I mean, there's so many different layers of communication that our podcast would never do it justice, but being aware is what this
Yeah.
podcast is about. And how
Yeah,
to
that's it.
start that conversation, whether it's with the companion guide and these
Mhm.
exercises, a personal assessment, or if it's just in getting what you give, maybe you need to tweak
Yes.
it. With over a decade of experience, WorldGate LLC is your trusted partner in IT staffing and project management tailored for the public sector. We help government agencies and organizations navigate complex technology landscapes, implement effective workforce solutions, and build high-performing teams from strategic staffing to seamless systems integrations. We bring the experience and reliability to execute, empower, and exceed for our customers. Staffing? Check. Project management? Check. Public sector solutions? Check. Experience you can trust. Visit our website at www.worldgatellc.com today.
The beauty of communication is it's always evolving. It's
Mhm,
constantly
mhm.
changing and there's always a chance to correct your path. right? So
Right.
you don't have to say, "Well, I'm just a terrible communicator, and so that's gonna be my excuse." Mm-mm. You have an opportunity to change your style, to adapt to your situation, to do the hard work, like you said, in all of those pieces. And it may still be that this is how I am and maybe even how I like to be. But if I want to be successful in what I'm trying to accomplish, you have to be adaptable to change your style to adapt to the situation
To get
so
what
that
you
you can
give.
be to get what you give. Exactly. Because otherwise, it's that whole, if you've always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was one of
Yes.
those. Yeah.
Say that again.
Hmm.
That was brilliant.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
um I will say that even in a moment of vulnerability prior to our podcast today, I was asking you, how am I communicating effective in a different scenario related to work or not? And the point I'm sharing is that even at this stage in our careers where I've been working for
Hmm.
35 years and I'm already an effective leader you know, in ways that I would have never imagined through the
Yeah.
work that we're talking about,
Yeah.
doing and performing it, I'm still doing that. And I still need
Yes.
perspective and we still need to be able to say, am I missing something? And we had a
Yeah.
pretty 15-minute deep
Yeah.
conversation around, here's my intent, which was good.
Mhm,
And here's what I'm
exactly.
being faced with. At what point do I cry uncle or am I not communicating effective? And how do I
Right.
communicate something effective?
Yeah,
And so I want to make sure that people recognize that this is a never ending cycle and it is
it
to be
is.
never ending. And I think if you
Yeah,
can really focus on that and work on that, that is real value in leadership
I
development.
agree.
And
No, I
yeah.
totally do. I agree with you. And I think too, what you brought up was an excellent point, Scott, in that we all still have emotions. Things
Mhm,
hit us the wrong way,
mhm.
or we may be sometimes, and that's the beauty of coaches, mentors, advisors, where you can have those conversations. So in our case, we have a relationship. We can have this conversation, we can talk through it, and that way, and we can share each other's, I can give you my perspective and you can give me yours. That helps us then process
And
through,
communicate
to come up
effectively.
and communicate effectively. And that's the whole purpose because sometimes you need that third party perspective
Right.
to
You
help
gave me
you
some
go,
clarity for someone else
yeah,
too, which is really
right.
nice because that clarity
Yeah.
then eliminates that sort of get what you got, continue to get
Yeah.
what you got. And so right, and
Exactly.
I think that's really, I just don't want to miss the beat for folks that this topic is not solved ever.
Mm-mm. No,
And
it
it
is
is
not.
it is ever evolving, and these tools that we're enlightening and this awareness that you could stay familiar in is super, super important as leaders
Yes.
and
I
for
totally
organizational
agree.
well-being.
No, that is such a good point. So, a couple things for our listeners to
Yeah,
just
let's get
start
those
thinking
takeaways.
about, right?
Yes.
Like, I want you to start thinking, do you lead with facts or feelings?
Mhm,
That's an important one, right? Do you
mhm.
prefer to get straight to the point or do you need to talk things through?
And here
And
comes my
how do
favorite.
you and how do you respond when there's tension or conflict? What do you do in those? Because those patterns are going to tell you a lot about your communication style, and how. So that's a good start. And then I really would encourage you, honestly. I mean, as much as we joke about to Scott's point about the workbook, but I really would encourage you to, if you don't do anything else in this workbook, do this one,
Mhm,
because this is going to set the foundation for everything else. And then the other cool thing in here is then there are some communication style scenarios in here as well
mhm,
that are
mhm.
great because they give you some different exercises. Because, Scott and I literally, we could talk to you for hours about different
All the different
scenarios and
ways.
how to
Yes,
approach that
yes.
different ways. And so this gives you just some foundation. And then you can use this as a way to kind of help provide you with some guidance as well as you're thinking through, maybe this situation. Maybe this is what I need to do. So,
Well, I think I wanna go back to also what you did, which was nice in summarizing what the takeaways are here today about lead with facts or feelings. Know whether or not you're a
mhm.
facts or feelings person. I'm
Yeah,
more of a feelings person than I am a facts
yeah,
person.
yeah,
Do I prefer clarity or collaboration? I prefer collaboration every time, and
yep,
I am more about developing clarity in collaboration. And
Yeah.
how do I respond to conflict? Well, the other piece and I like that you said those, and I want to reiterate them because this is where your podcast and what we're doing together can be then
Yeah.
moved to the workbook, because there's an observations page inside of communications that allows you to
Yes.
map the content that we're sort of tickling here with
Mhm.
the workbook. And then you've got these pages. You could start to marry a storyline for yourself together.
Absolutely.
And the
No, I
examples that
totally
we're
agree.
sharing and talking about can be navigated. Thank you again for referencing the workbook, because I think they can be navigated in those pages. And that's where this
Yeah,
works well with that. And it's a
absolutely.
framework. It's a framework that allows people to start to just recognize that you get what you give, and
You
communication
do.
is where it starts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, I and it makes it and I what I will say is you will find that when you start to understand how you communicate and how others communicate, it actually will help to bring down the tension and conflict a little bit in situations too. Because if I can look at it and say, "Oh, Scott approaches things more of feelings. I'm more of a facts person,
Right.
so I'm not going to take
Where's the disparity?
offense."
Yeah.
Yeah, I like so if Scott comes to me hard
Emotionally mad.
with
Yeah.
emotionally and he's charged up, I'm not gonna immediately go, "Gosh, why are you attacking me? What
You've
is
been
going
there with
on
me a
here?"
few times,
Yeah.
actually.
So I have some experience with this.
Yes, you do.
And so
But
it
it's good to
actually
clarify
though
for our listeners, I think,
yeah,
though. It's not
I
about
think
us. It's
so.
about like recognizing
No.
these patterns in oneself.
It
Sorry, keep
is.
going. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, but and so in that case, then I'm not gonna take it so personal, and now we
Right.
can have a really good conversation because once you're done expressing your feelings, what I'm gonna do then is,
Let's
"All
get
right,
into the
let me just
facts.
kinda get the facts.
Yeah.
I'm gonna push all the white noise out, and I'm gonna say, 'What I heard you say was this, this, and this.'" And then we can get into it, and we can start to talk through and come up with resolution around that. So I think that's why communication really, it's like if you don't learn anything else, really work on those communication styles because that is just it's like the foundation of so much. So in life
Well,
and in person, right?
eh,
Work and life. So yeah,
well, everything, and I've noticed that in my coaching sessions through people through this framework, that once they
yeah.
master it at work, they can't unsee it and they bring it home.
Well, we'll be back next time and we're going to
Yes.
talk a little bit more about taking the awareness and putting it into action and using some simple but powerful concepts, which is the yes and exercise. And I'm really excited to
Wonderful.
get into that with you in the next episode. But in the meantime, isn't there some website out there where if people want to learn a little
There
bit
is,
more?
and we can do one of these. This is what you get when you go on www.howyougothere.com. And it also spells how you got here. So, little kitschy on that. And sometime this fall, maybe more towards Christmas, you'll be able to pick up your second version of the companion guide to the original How Did You Get Here book that I wrote back in
Yeah.
2023 that really starts to kick things off. So yes, long story short, www.howyougothere.com.
Absolutely. And if you like this episode, make sure that you like, subscribe, follow. We also love to get feedback from you. So,
Yeah,
please feel
please.
free to share comments. We love to learn from our listeners just as much. So, but until next time, my friend, I will see you then.
Always good to see you. Thank you for everything.
Always
And
good to see
yes,
you.
have a great week.